It all started with a slammed door and a sentence I'll never forget. "You're just a guest here." That's what my daughter-in-law said before storming off. I just sat there, still in the old armchair where I had painted the baseboards. Myself the first day they moved in. That chair carried more than just my weight. It carried my memories. After my husband died of cancer 2 years ago, I packed up what little I had and drove to Colorado to live with my son and his wife. They had just had a baby girl, and I thought maybe being close to family again would help all of us heal. I offered to help however I could, watching the kids, cooking meals, even covering bills with my nurse's pension. I paid for groceries, preschool, heat in the winter, you name it. I never asked for anything back, not even a thank you. At first, everything felt right. The kids loved having me around. My son still called me Mom, and even my daughter-in-law smiled now and then. But slowly, the warmth started to fade. Their words got colder. Little things, like moving my family photos to a dusty shelf. Big things, too, like leaving me out of house decisions or making plans without telling me. One day, she looked me in the eye and said they needed my room for storage or maybe a craft corner. And this morning, I overheard her yelling, "You're lucky we let you live here. You don't get a say." That hurt more than anything. I had given everything I could. My time, my love, my money. Because that's what family means to me. But in that moment, I realized they didn't see me as part of the family anymore. Just someone in the way. My grandkids still smiled at me like I belonged, and that gave me strength. But when I looked at my son, the boy whose scraped knees I used to bandage, he looked away. He didn't speak up for me. Not really. So I sat, back down in that same chair, and thought of my husband, our old house, all the years we built together. And I understood something very clearly. This wasn't my home anymore. I wasn't angry, just heartbroken. But it was time to stop pretending. It wasn't about anger. It was about finally understanding something deep. Even if they could take my name off things, they couldn't erase what I had done for them. I stood up slowly from the old chair, the one that had held me through so much. It creaked, and I gently patted the arm like I was saying, "Thank you for holding me." Then I took a deep breath. Her door was still closed behind the harsh words she had thrown at me, and in that silence, I promised myself I'd find a way to remind them who was really keeping this house running. I always wake before the sun rises. The house feels too quiet, in the dark, but for some reason, that's when I feel like I'm needed, even when I'm not. I slide into the kitchen in my old slippers, tie on an apron I've had for years, and start the day like I always do. I chop carrots for stew, spinach for a quiche, apples for oatmeal. The coffee pot starts bubbling, and I line up bowls and spoons on the counter. I do this every single morning without a single complaint, because making food for the people I love gives me purpose. It's what I can do, even when I feel invisible. I get dressed quickly before the kids wake up. I help them through their little routines, reminding my granddaughter to wash her hands, helping my grandson find socks that match. They laugh and chatter as we sit down at the big oak table, the same one I helped them pick out years ago. I serve up the oatmeal with fruit and juice, just like always. But I sit way down at the far end of the table now. That's just how it is. My daughter-in-law slides her plate across the table and folds her arms, sitting close to my son. I try making small talk. My voice is gentle, but the silence that follows is stiff and cold. They answer me with short, polite words like I'm a stranger. My son's eyes hold a bit of warmth, but hers look like judgment. I take a bite of oatmeal and taste the cinnamon and apples, but I barely notice it. I wonder, when did I become background noise in my own life? After the kids rush off to school, I clean up in silence. The house feels strange now. Some rooms too big, others too tight. I fold laundry alone and think back to when I first offered to help with bills. I remember telling my son, Let me take care of preschool or the utilities. I want to take some pressure off. He nodded, grateful. But she looked unsure, like she didn't trust my reasons. What they never knew is that I'd quietly created a trust account where my pension checks went. That money paid for electricity, gas, groceries, even preschool. I never said anything. I just wanted to help. I believed love was shown through giving. I thought being useful meant being valued. But I was wrong. Now I keep the bank statements tucked away in my desk, not because I expect thanks, but just to remind myself of what I gave, quietly, consistently. I was the one in the background making sure everything worked. And still, I asked for nothing. One day I heard her on the phone, laughing. She told someone she's just here because she has nowhere else to go. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did, and something inside me hurt. I wasn't a guest. I was their mother. I wasn't some burden. I was the one pouring everything I had into this family. That afternoon, I folded towels with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. That night, I tried to bring up school lunches and field trip fees. I said softly, I could help with that, like last year. But she didn't even look up from her phone. She just said flatly, you don't have a vote. Those 5 words felt heavier than anything I've heard in my life. A sentence that sounded like a door slamming shut in my face. In that moment, I wanted to say so many things, like how I paid for all of this, how I kept this home warm, how I never stopped loving any of them. But I didn't say anything, because sometimes silence says it all. You don't get to decide who eats at this table, she said. I didn't argue. I just nodded slowly, reached for my teacup, and took a small sip. It burned my tongue, but I welcomed the sting. It distracted me from the tears trying to rise. I wouldn't let them fall. Not here, not in front of her. As I walked upstairs, I passed the door to what used to be the guest room, my room. But now, her name is back on it, like I never belonged there. I had painted that doorframe myself, freshened it up when they first moved in. I told them it was a guest room, a shared space. But now it feels like a cage, like I'm locked, out of my own life. At the top of the stairs, I paused. One hand gripped the railing while the other trembled by my side. My hands are rough now, worn from years of hard work in hospital wards, from holding hands of patients taking their final breaths, from long nights and aching backs. She could never understand what it took to survive that life, to carry others while silently breaking. Yet somehow, she still had the nerve to say, you don't have a vote. I funded the life she's living, but I stayed quiet. I held my breath and remembered what I promised myself that morning. I will not cry. I will not beg. I will not shrink to fit in a space I helped build. Instead, I will rise. I will find a way to remind them that I matter. I closed my eyes and thought about the trust account, the one that paid for their lights, their heat, their kids' school. I saw the paperwork, the deposits, the stamps. For so long, I believed giving in silence was enough. But all it did was make them see me as a burden, as if I was some kind of charity case. But I'm not. I'm the one who held this house together, behind the scenes. And this morning, they made it clear they didn't see it that way. Maybe it's time I reminded them I still have something they've forgotten, the power to start again. I first noticed something was changing when the yogurt in the fridge was labeled John only, then kids' lunch, do not eat mine. The writing was fresh, dark ink, like a warning. My hands hovered over the shelf, unsure if the strawberries I washed and sliced that morning would be labeled next. I closed the fridge slowly, resting my hands on the counter, trying to make sense of it. I told myself maybe it was just about being organized. But the next day, I opened the fridge again. My apples had been moved to the bottom drawer. My milk, the one I bought, was gone, replaced with almond milk I didn't buy. When I reached for the eggs, I found a sticky note taped to the carton, "Please use your own groceries." That afternoon, my daughter-in-law walked in with a strange smile, the kind people wear when they're about to tell you something they've been practicing in their head. "I think we should all start buying our own food," she said, her voice too sweet. "Just to be fair." "To be fair," I repeated, setting down the sponge I'd been using to scrub their stove. She nodded, folding laundry she'd left sitting on the couch for days. "We all have different preferences and budgets. It just makes more sense." I didn't say anything. I just nodded again and quietly wrote bread and milk on the small notepad I kept in my room. Not our kitchen, not our space. My room. Like, I was a tenant renting space in the house I helped keep warm. Soon after that, they gave me my own shelf in the pantry and a drawer in the fridge. I began labeling my groceries too, not to be petty, but because I had to. And with every label I added, I felt myself disappearing, piece by piece. First the kitchen, then the calendar, and soon even the feeling of home. Then came the group chat. I'd always been part of the family text thread, used for school reminders, soccer practices, birthday planning. But one day, I realized I hadn't received a single message in days. Curious, I asked my son, "Hey, did I miss something about the kids' summer camp?" He looked confused. "I thought we talked about that last night." "I wasn't there," I said, my heart sinking. He scrolled through his phone, then paused. "Oh, it must have moved to the new thread." "What new thread?" I asked. "The one just for the three of us," he mumbled, looking away. "It's just easier for scheduling." Just like that, I was no longer part of the family's plans. No voice, no vote. Just an afterthought, left out of conversations I used to help lead. Sometimes I hear them making weekend plans, laughing and chatting from the hallway. I hear the front door open and close, and when I glance outside, I see their car pulling away. And I'm still standing by the window, alone. I used to watch them pull out of the driveway, the kids dressed up all cute for birthday parties, dinners, or day trips, things I was never invited to. They didn't even bother making up excuses anymore. Eventually, I stopped eating at the dining table. I just didn't want to sit there and feel people whispering about me, treating my presence like some awkward shadow. My plate always looked different, like I didn't belong. Conversations would stop when I tried to join in, like I was interrupting something. So I started eating in the living room instead. That space used to feel like mine too. I had chosen the curtains with my son. I even sewed the cushion covers myself back when they couldn't afford to buy a new couch. But now, even that room felt taken over. My favorite chair, always covered with her throw pillows or her laptop. One day, my cozy blanket just disappeared. I found it later, stuffed inside the dog's crate. Then one cold afternoon, I accidentally left the garage door open. I had come back from the store, arms full of groceries I bought for myself, and must have pressed the wrong button. My back was aching again, and I wasn't thinking straight. That evening, she came in furious. "Do you realize the garage door was open all afternoon?" she snapped. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, standing at the sink. "Anyone could have walked in. Are you trying to get us robbed?" "No, it was just a mistake." "It always is with you," she shot back, her voice sharp. "You forget things. You slow us down. You eat our food. You take up space." I tried to respond, but she raised her hand, not to hit me, thank God, but just to shut me up. "You're just a guest here," she said through clenched teeth. "Not family." That word, guest, hit harder than any of her angry words before. This wasn't just her being upset. This was her truth. In her eyes, I wasn't her mother-in-law. I wasn't a grandmother. I wasn't someone who helped keep this family going. I was just in the way. I didn't say anything. I walked into the living room, sat on the couch, and looked up at the family photo on the mantel. In that picture, I was standing behind them, hands on their shoulders, smiling proudly like the head of the family. I stared at that photo and realized it had been a long time since I'd seen that same smile in the mirror. I sat there until the house grew quiet, and I thought again about the account in my name, the one that kept this house running, the one that paid the bills, put food on the table, kept the lights on. I had never wanted to use it as a weapon, but maybe they needed reminding. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table and spread out all the papers, like I was preparing for battle. It had been a while since I'd gone through my records, but I knew exactly where they were, neatly filed in the second drawer of the old oak cabinet I brought from my old house. Every deposit slip, every signed form, every letter from the credit union, I had saved it all. My husband once told me, paper is power, and I never forgot that. I pulled out the folder labeled Trust Account, Marguerite P. It was thick, heavier than I remembered. I flipped through the most recent statements, reading every line. Monthly transfers, $2,000, $1,800, $2,300, all going to the same debit card that my son and his wife used to pay for groceries, school fees, utility bills, everything, and every single one of those withdrawals, authorized by me, my initials, not theirs. That account was mine, fully, legally, and it couldn't be changed without my say. When I set it up, I did it out of love. My son had lost his job during the pandemic, and their new baby came with a mountain of expenses. I wanted to help without making them feel small. So I quietly called my financial advisor and created a trust account. Not one they'd owe taxes on later, just one I could manage while I was still here. And I did manage it. Every single dollar. I paid bills before they were due. I covered summer camp fees. I bought groceries they never asked about. They assumed it came from my pension or savings or just my kindness. They never once thought I had a plan, that I had structure, that I was still sharp. I picked up the phone and called my advisor. "Mrs. Patterson," he said kindly, "what can I do for you today?" "I just want to confirm something," I said, calm and steady. "The trust account for my family, the one under my name, I'm still the only person in control of it, right?" "Yes, you're still the only one in charge," my advisor said without hesitation. "No one else can touch that account unless you say so." I nodded slowly. "And if I wanted to freeze it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Then, "It's frozen," he said. "No more money in or out. They can't use a single dollar." I let the silence settle in for a moment. "They lie about it, you know," I whispered. "I know," he replied gently, "but you don't need their permission to protect yourself." I looked back at the bank statement. Groceries from Whole Foods, a school fee, a receipt for tiny shoes, all paid from my trust account, all things I had lovingly provided for them, things I never asked for credit for. They never said thank you, not really. They just assumed it would always be there. I imagined the card getting declined at checkout, the surprise on her face, the confusion on his. And strangely, I didn't feel mean. I felt clear. I closed the folder and said, "Go ahead. Freeze the account." He didn't ask questions. "Consider it done," he replied. And just like that, I started to take myself back. I didn't say a word to anyone, not my son, not the kids, not the woman who once told me I was just a guest. That afternoon I made tea, folded some laundry, and baked a peach cobbler, one last treat for the little ones. I left it on the counter with a note, "Enjoy, darlings, Grandma." Then I went to my room, sat on the bed, and stared out the window. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat in the quiet, finally feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. I had given so much. Not just money, but love, comfort, safety. Now I was taking back something just as important, my place, my pride, my voice. The next morning, I woke up early. No alarm, no noise, just my own steady breath. The sun hadn't even hit the curtains yet. I sat at the dining table and wrote a short note in my neatest handwriting. No drama, just truth. Thank you for reminding me who I really am. I folded it once, left it under the salt shaker, and set a cup of tea beside it. Jasmine, her favorite, or at least it used to be. I packed one small suitcase. Just enough for a fresh start. My favorite cardigan, my pearl earrings from our 25th anniversary, and a paperback I never got to finish. Everything else, the dishes I scrubbed, the blankets I folded, the meals I paid for, could stay. I wasn't going to carry crumbs from a table where I wasn't welcome anymore. I left the house without a sound, no slammed door, no goodbye, just dropped the keys in the mailbox and walked to the waiting taxi. Need help with your bag? The driver asked. I smiled. No thanks, it's light. Lighter than I ever thought it could be. 2 hours later, I unlocked the door of a small one-bedroom apartment in Colorado Springs. I had bought it quietly years ago, just in case. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I had learned to trust myself. The place smelled of pine and freshly cleaned floors. It was empty, but not lonely. I opened the windows and let the cool breeze in. I sat at the table and watched the sunlight pour in. No voices, no footsteps, no whispering behind closed doors. Just stillness. And for once, it felt like it belonged to me. I turned off my phone. A few days later, the messages started. My son, Mom? Did something happen to the account? The card's not working. Then, the school called, tuition bounced. Can we talk? Then her, is this a joke? We're 2 weeks behind on the electric bill. I didn't reply. Not out of spite, not to hurt them, but because there was nothing I could say that they were ready to hear. They had made it clear I was just a guest, and guests don't get emergency calls. Guests don't carry the weight. Guests don't hold the power. I never meant to hurt anyone. I didn't walk away to destroy, I walked away to save myself. But the truth is, I was never just a guest in that house. I was the quiet force behind everything they took for granted. I was the one keeping things running smoothly, even when no one noticed. And when I finally let go, everything shook. Harder and faster than I expected. A week after I left, the cracks started to show. The bank sent them a notice. No money left. Then the school followed up. Tuition hadn't gone through and they needed it fixed right away. Then came the electric company, warning them they'd shut the power off in 2 days if the bill wasn't paid. I didn't want it to fall apart like this. But they had come to depend so completely on what I provided, they never learned how to take care of things on their own. I had made life too easy, too comfortable. They forgot who was holding it all together. And when I stopped, they fell. That evening, I sat on the small balcony of my apartment, holding a warm cup of tea. The sky was fading over Colorado Springs, turning deep blue with hints of orange. I thought of my grandkids. I missed their giggles, their messy hands, their sleepy hugs. I missed them deeply, but I couldn't go back. Not like that. Not as someone who gave and gave while being treated like I didn't matter. They had to figure things out without me, and I needed to finally live my own life. The silence I left behind? It was louder than any goodbye. It didn't take long for the panic to set in. My son sent messages, one after the other, growing. More desperate each time. Mom, please call. Can you just explain what's going on? Then came the emails, some apologizing, some trying to explain. I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but because I had already spent years replying, years of softening my words, of shrinking myself just to keep the peace. This time, I let the silence speak for me. Neighbors started telling me things. The house didn't feel like a home anymore. The pantry was almost empty. The fridge, once packed, held only a bottle of ketchup, some expired eggs, and a splash of almond milk. Ironically, the same kind she once told me to stop drinking. My daughter-in-law lost her job not long after I left. Too many missed days. Not enough help with the kids. My son? He took whatever work he could find, mowing lawns, hauling trash, anything to get by. He used to wear suits. Now he wore calluses and sore feet. A friend called one morning and said, "I saw her, your daughter-in-law, standing in the driveway, yelling into her phone like someone had stolen everything from her." I almost laughed, not out of cruelty, but because in some ways they had taken everything from me first. My time, my care, my quiet support. And when I left, all of that went with me. The kitchen I once filled with cinnamon and warm breakfasts was cold now. The oven barely used. The dining table left bare. The guest room she once slammed shut now stayed wide open, like she was hoping I'd come back. But I wouldn't. I wasn't that woman anymore. Not the silent helper, not the unpaid babysitter, not the ghost in the hallway. I hadn't blocked them. I had just stepped out of reach. Then came a rainy Tuesday. A message popped up. "We need you." Later, another. "Please come back. I'm sorry." Then one final voicemail. Her voice was shaky, trying to stay calm. "Hey, Jory, I know we said things we shouldn't have. I know we were unfair. But we need help. The kids need stability. John's working late. Well, it's hard. Can we talk?" I listened to the voicemail twice. Then I deleted it. Because even in her apology, it sounded like she still believed words could fix everything. But it wasn't her words that built that home. It was my effort, my money, my love. And I was done pretending otherwise. She thought I was just a guest. But I had been the foundation all along. And when I left, the whole house finally realized what had been holding it up. These days, my mornings are quiet, but not the kind of quiet that feels empty. It's the kind that feels like a long, slow exhale after holding your breath for too many years. I make my tea, Earl Grey, every morning at 7. I sit by the window of my little apartment, watching steam rise from my cup. No one calls me from the other room. No one asks what's for breakfast or slides a grocery list across the table. It's just me and peace. The days unfold gently now. I read books I never got to finish, books that sat on shelves while I was busy being needed. And for once, I don't feel tired. I feel free. Lately, I've started writing again. Nothing big, just little letters to myself. They're like quiet reminders that I'm still here, still whole. I've also been taking peaceful walks down to the hot springs. The gentle sound of water running over the rocks calms me. It's like a soft song, quietly reminding me that everything, even pain, eventually moves on. I joined a women's group at the local rec center. We're mostly older ladies. Many of us widows. We meet twice a week for tea and long talks. A lot of us spent our lives taking care of our families, only to be left feeling empty when we weren't needed anymore. We talk about our grown-up kids who barely call, the husbands who took more than they gave, and the strange quiet that comes when no one depends on you anymore. But there's comfort in being together. We understand each other in a way that doesn't always need words. Sometimes we cry, but we laugh a lot too. They call me Grandma with the last laugh, and I like that I've earned it. We share stories that make us laugh until our stomachs hurt. Burnt casseroles, bad haircuts, clueless husbands, and all the mess that somehow made life sweet. I also help them with serious stuff, going through their wills, checking if their names are on house papers, making sure important things aren't just stuffed in a dusty drawer. I remind them that love doesn't always protect you when sickness or greed show up. One woman cried when she found out her son had tricked her into signing loan papers. Another laughed through tears while cutting up a credit card her daughter kept using. We call those days Taking Back Tuesdays, quiet victories that happen around a kitchen table, not in a courtroom. As for my son, I don't hate him. That kind of love never really disappears. Even when it hurts, it's still built from lullabies, school essays, and tearful goodbyes. I don't hate my daughter-in-law either, though I used to wonder if her kindness was real or just for show. But now, I don't bend over backwards to be liked. I'm not here to please anyone anymore. I'm here to live. I spent years giving too much, always saying yes, always putting myself last, until I didn't even recognize the woman in the mirror. But when I finally said no and spoke up, I didn't lose them. I found myself. The woman who once dreamed of writing, who loved her quiet time, who missed hearing her own thoughts. She was still there, just buried under years of responsibilities. If I could go back and talk to the woman I used to be, tired, doing dishes at 2 a.m., buried in bills, I'd say, "You matter, even when no one says so, especially then." Now, I spend my mornings slowly and my days with care. I go to poetry readings at the library, sketch under the big oak tree at the park, and volunteer at the senior center, sharing smiles and stories with women I may not remember by name, but whose faces light up my heart. I've realized that retirement isn't the end. It's a brand new beginning, a chance to remember who I am when no one's asking me to be anyone else. Not long ago, I even hosted my first real dinner here. Simple food, warm laughs, and a full heart. The other day, I hosted my very first real dinner in a long time. I didn't go all out, just store-bought bread, roasted veggies, and a big harvest salad. I invited 2 women from my group and a sweet neighbor I met at the coffee shop. We laughed so much, the kind of laughter that makes your stomach hurt and your heart feel light. When it was time to clean up, they helped me, and even then the table still echoed with conversation. In the warm glow of the lamp, I realized this is what life is supposed to feel like: safe, joyful, real. Time still flows around me like a river, but it doesn't drag me down anymore. Instead, it feeds the strong ground I now stand on. My phone still lights up with messages from my son. He says he misses my laugh. He asks if I need anything. He ends every message with, "Mom, you're welcome back anytime." But I don't reply. Not yet. I've learned that love isn't just in words, it's in actions. Now we meet in cafes, not at that kitchen table where I once gave too much. And when I come home, I sleep peacefully. The door closes gently behind me, and I feel calm, full, and finally, like this life is truly mine. In the quiet mornings, I sit with a cup of Earl Grey tea and think, I found myself, and she was worth the wait. I don't hate my son. That would be too easy. Hate feels distant, and our pain was never far apart. It was wrapped up in each other, grown from the same place that once held bedtime stories, skinned knees, and a little boy who clung to my apron just to be near me. I raised him to be thoughtful and kind, and for a long time, he was. He opened doors for older women. He helped out on weekends. He used to kiss my cheek before dinner and say thank you without anyone telling him to. When he was 13, he once said he'd buy me a house so I wouldn't have to work so late at the hospital. But life has a way of wearing people down, especially when they choose pride over love, when comfort turns into something they think they're owed. I see now that I protected him too much. I thought I was being a good mom, but really, I was carrying all the weight so he wouldn't have to. And in the process, I got crushed. But still, I don't hate him. I just won't save him anymore. There's a big difference between walking away angry and stepping back with wisdom. I didn't leave because I was bitter. I left because I finally saw clearly. Motherhood taught me so much: how to stretch a few dollars into dinner, how to cry quietly while stirring soup, how to smile when I felt like screaming, how to sit through PTA meetings in hand-me-down coats and pretend I didn't. Notice the looks. How to accept disrespect just to keep the peace. How to pretend over and over again that I was okay. But the most powerful thing it taught me: when to let go. Because when your hands are always holding someone else up, you forget how to stand on your own. You bend so much, you forget you were ever upright. To the women who might read or hear this someday, the mothers, grandmothers, wives, caregivers, please hear me when I say, do not become a stranger in the home you helped build. Do not let their comfort become your cage. Do not give so much of yourself that you disappear. Keep your name on the house. Keep your name on your self-worth. And when they call you bitter or too much, remember, that's what people say when you stop handing them everything. They call you selfish the moment you stop being selfless for their convenience. When they forget who taught them how to tie their shoes, how to hold a baby, how to calm a scared heart, don't remind them with angry words. Don't beg, just let your absence speak, because sometimes the only way they learn is by hearing the echo of the door quietly closing behind you. I used to stand in that kitchen like a ghost, cooking for people who didn't even look me in the eye. I tiptoed through my own house, careful not to upset the fragile illusion of their grown-up independence. I swallowed my thoughts whole because I was told it wasn't my place. They made me feel like a guest in the home I helped build. And it didn't break me all at once. It was slow, like a candle burning down to the last flicker. But now I wake up every morning in the soft light of my own space. I pour my tea with both hands steady. I am here, full of peace. And finally, I feel like myself again. These days, my hands are finally free. No one interrupting me, no chores waiting, no quiet sighs meant to shame me from across the room. I eat when I'm hungry. I laugh when something's funny. I play music loud and I sing along even if I hit all the wrong notes. I soak in every moment of peace, the same peace I once paid for others to enjoy. I've heard things aren't going so well for them now. Through neighbors or family, I hear little bits. The bank account is still empty. The house is cold in the winter. She lost her job. He takes whatever extra shifts he can find. The kids are still wearing the same shoes 2 school years in a row. I don't watch them struggle. I don't feel happy about it. But I do remember. I remember being called a burden. I remember the grocery lists where my name was never written, only theirs. I remember her saying, "You don't get a say under our roof," like I hadn't helped pay for the very roof over her head. I remember hearing my name whispered in the hallway, like a problem to be solved, while they thought I was asleep in the next room. And if they ever sit there, confused in that cold kitchen, wondering how everything fell apart, wondering why, things changed, they'll have to face the truth. This is what happens when the hands that held you finally let go. When the woman who paid the bills, covered the rent, bought the groceries, and smiled through every unkind word, finally says, "Enough." I gave them warmth. They gave me food labeled with warnings, like I was a stranger. I gave them stability. They pushed me out. I gave them memories. They gave me convenience. So I gave them what they feared the most, freedom from me, and I won't take it back. Now I sit in a cozy room filled with books, soft music, and women who see me, not use me, and no, I don't wish for the past to change. I don't sit around hoping we'll make up. I don't wait for them to knock on my door. What I hope, truly, is that they learn. And if they don't, then I hope they understand what it means to lose someone who only ever asked for one thing: respect. Because that's what this story has always been about. Not revenge, not anger, just memory, just truth, just finally being seen. To the daughters-in-law who forgot who made their homes possible. To the sons who let pride erase the hands that wiped their tears. To the families who treat love like a deal and care like a cost, hear me now. My daughter-in-law once called me just a guest. Well, now I own my peace, and she's out there just paying rent to survive. So thank you for listening to my story. And if some part of it hit home for you, if something inside whispered, "That could have been me," then remember, you're not alone. We are many, mothers, grandmothers, women who once kept quiet so others could speak. Now, our Silence has turned into strength. Our stories are no longer hidden in the background. And when we speak, we don't shout. We remember. We reclaim. We remind. If you believe in slow justice and truth that sticks no matter how long it takes, join us at Her Yesterday by Emma. We share real voices from women who were never just guests. We were always the foundation. And when a grandma speaks, the world doesn't just listen, it changes.